All right, here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for, the Game Above Sports Bowl. It kicks off today. This afternoon, your Pitt Panthers will take on the Toledo Rockets of scenic Toledo, Ohio, in scenic Detroit, Michigan. You've got one team from scenic Pittsburgh taking on a team from scenic Toledo in a game played in scenic Detroit. You might as well call this the Game Above Scenic Bowl. No, you wouldn't call it that because the title sponsor is GameAbove Sports, and they're the ones who get to name the game, and they named it the GameAbove Sports Bowl, and they made the always appreciated decision to invite your Pitt Panthers and the Toledo Rockets out to Detroit to play a little game here on the day after Christmas. Hope everyone had a great holiday. Enjoyed the week so far. You get Christmas Eve on Tuesday. You get everything that yesterday brought with the Steelers and just also being Christmas. And now today you get the Game Above Sports Bowl, Pitt Toledo in Detroit at Ford Field for a 2 o'clock kickoff. What should you be looking for today? What do we make of this game? What are your expectations for Pitt in this game? And is this a no-win game for Pitt? Maybe. Is it a lose-lose scenario? Possibly. Is there also a way that it could be a if not a win-win, no-lose scenario? I think so. I think we could find ways to talk ourselves into this game. Well, we could probably talk ourselves into any result. We could talk ourselves into any interpretation of any result that we want. So I'll lay them all out right now, so we're not just doing it after the fact on the post-game show later this afternoon. And then we'll have all the possible outcomes and how you can rationalize them for yourself, later when the game is actually played. So let's talk about what to watch for. Let's talk about some of the key matchups, some of the things we're interested in from Pitt, and overall how we view this game, what we think of this game, and how what our perception is of the Game Above Sports Bowl, what it means for Pitt's 2024 season as it comes to a close in Detroit this afternoon. We got a lot to talk about to get you ready for this one, so let's dive into it. It's the Thursday edition of the Bowl Game Preview edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's a Game Above Sports Bowl that'll be played just a few hours from now, depending on when you're watching this video. Hopefully you're watching this video before the 2 o'clock kickoff so that you're, not bringing this video up after the game to point out all the things I got wrong, which if you want to do that, that's fine for sure. Remember, we'll be live after the game today right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com for the Panther-Lair post-game show. We will have drinks, we will talk football, and we'll do it as long as we need or want to. Just like we did after the regular season finale last year. Remember that Duke game? I think we were on the air. We were live streaming for close to 3 hours, I would say, which was a remarkably long post-game show. I don't know if we'll get 3 hours this afternoon. We might all just be done with it. But we'll go for a while, and we'll talk about what we see in this game, our final football post-game show of 2024. We'll start getting some basketball post-game shows worked in here, maybe after some road games. Throughout the season. We'll keep you posted on that schedule. But if you want to make sure you don't miss any of our Pitt video content, either these Morning Pitt videos or press conferences, interviews, post-game shows, whatever it may be, you can like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That will keep you updated on everything we do here. And of course, check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, for all the Pitt sports news you can possibly handle. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. for all the Pitt coverage, and the message boards where you can talk to other Pitt fans. It really is. I actually put up a post yesterday just sort of, wishing holiday greetings to everyone and just sort of generally saying thank you, because we work really hard to provide a lot of Pitt coverage. Me and Jim Hammett and all our basketball guys, Matt and Houston and Steve, we work hard to provide a lot of Pitt coverage and as much as we possibly can. But ultimately, I think what makes the site great is the message boards, and that's the Pitt fans who are there. They are carrying the conversations, going on with the discussions, and we don't always agree. Everybody's got their own opinions, and sometimes there are disagreements there, but in the end, it's still a great collection of Pitt fans gathering to talk about Pitt sports. I think it's the best online community of Pitt fans you're going to find. So go check it out, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. So what do we expect out of Pitt Toledo in this matchup today at 2 o'clock, the Game Above Sports Bowl at Ford Field in Detroit? I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I mean, I could sit here. I've got, I know our friend, the Jedi likes when I get the legal pad out. I've got some of Toledo's stats jotted down here. I could talk to you about how Toledo is 98th in the country in third down conversion offense. I could talk to you about how they're 89th in the country in first downs gained, about how their red zone offense is one of the worst in the country, about how their rushing offense is outside the top 100 nationally. I can tell you about how their scoring offense is 75th in the country. I can tell you about their total offense, total yards gained, yards per game is 92nd. I can tell you all these things and say, well, they don't have a great offense, but that doesn't entirely tell the story of Toledo's offense. We'll get to the story of Toledo's offense in a second, though, because the most interesting thing to me, the most interesting thing to you, and the most interesting thing to anyone watching this from a Pitt perspective is going to be Pitt's offense. And more specifically, who's playing. And we've said a few times, and I continue to say, we don't expect Eli Holstein to be out there. Don't think he's going to. Oh, by the way, Christmas, got the kids a PlayStation, got the kids a college football game, and they call him Holstein. Come on. I know he wasn't playing at that point, but Holstein? Really? I can finally have these conversations now about the college football 25 game. And I have a few questions about some of these guys that are on Pitt's roster. I don't know who these guys are. I thought I knew Pitt's roster pretty well, but I'm pretty sure I don't know a defensive end named Bradley. I don't know who that guy was. Did Bam Bradley get an extra year of eligibility and move to defensive end, and I didn't know about it? It's possible. There's a lot of things going on right now, and I don't necessarily know all of them, but I'm pretty sure I don't know who that guy is. There were a couple names on there. I'm like, who is this guy? I also know that Travis Hunter was already deemed a cheat code on that video game long before, well before the season ever started. That dude is ridiculous. That's like, just throw it up, and he usually comes down with a play, and Shedeur Sanders has a pretty big arm, so you can throw it far down the field. But I digress. Holstein, or Holstein, as the video game would say it, don't expect him to play. Don't think he's going to be available for this one. Of course, Nate Yarnell, who appears on the screen in timely fashion, has entered the transfer portal and I believe ended at Texas State. Ty Diefenbach, who was somewhere behind him, but a scholarship quarterback on the roster, has entered the transfer portal, so he's not available. So Pitt's going to go to Detroit. If Eli Holstein truly is out, which we expect to be the case, Pitt's going to go to Detroit with one scholarship quarterback, and it's true freshman Julian Duggar. And that's not a failure of recruiting. It's having two guys transfer out after the season. And, who knows, maybe if Ty Diefenbach was here, maybe it would still be in a position where a walk-on might be starting, because we saw that in the whatever game it was, Boston College, I guess, that, or Louisville, I forget which game, but David Lynch ended up playing ahead of Ty Diefenbach. So, maybe Diefenbach's transfer is less relevant. Nate Yarnell will be the guy you would like to have, still around, so he could step in the event of Eli Holstein not playing. But those guys aren't here. And if Holstein is still injured from the Louisville game and unable to play, which I think seems reasonable considering he'll just be a little over 4 weeks removed from an injury that not only took him out of the game, but had him on the sideline in crutches and a boot, then you're probably looking at starting quarterback, redshirt freshman walk-on David Lynch. And we could all make a lot of Twin Peaks jokes and talk about, David Lynch movies. I'm really partial to Mulholland Drive. I love that movie, but we're not going to make those jokes today because it's a little bit more of a pressing matter. This question of who's going to start. I don't know that it's an indictment on Julian Duggar if David Lynch gets the start. I also don't know that it means we won't see Duggar if David Lynch gets the start. I wouldn't be surprised if you see both of those guys later today. I wouldn't be surprised to see a mixing and matching. I don't know if they're going to roll out something entirely new out of the offense, but giving some snaps, some reps to Julian Duggar wouldn't be a total shock to me. And this whole quarterback question brings us to the matter of perspective on this game. Okay, there's a certain segment of the Pitt fan base that has already resigned itself, has already drawn its conclusions about this game. That it's a no-win for Pitt. That if Pitt loses, obviously that's a bad outcome and a negative result. But if Pitt wins, they have no intention of giving Pitt any credit for the victory because all you did was beat a 7-5 MAC team in a crappy bowl after you started a season 7-0. And I mean, I am not besmirching the GameAbove Sports Bowl and referring to it as a crappy bowl. This is the perspective of some Pitt fans who have already decided the conclusion they will draw, regardless of the outcome of this game. And I get it. I get it. I understand where that perspective comes from. Even set aside the disappointment that came with the 5-game losing streak, although we could never set that aside, but set that aside for a second. Just the sheer nature of where they are as a 7-5 team playing in Detroit against a 7-5 MAC team. It does. I can see if you say it feels like a no-win situation. I think there's a way you could look at it as a no-lose situation. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be excited about the outcome one way or the other, but hear me out. Let's say if they lose, it's going to be very easy and not unreasonable to turn around and say, who cares? This means nothing. They were playing with a redshirt freshman walk-on quarterback. I'm not drawing any conclusions about this team, this season, or where they are heading into next season based on what happens when they play against a 7-5 MAC team with a redshirt freshman walk-on starting at quarterback. That has very little relevance to what the team is going to be next year. And if you were to take that opinion, I would say you're absolutely right. Right? Because next year is going to hinge on what they do with the offensive line, how they improve it through the transfer portal, and they already got one guy with Kendall Stanley coming in from Charlotte as a transfer, to be a starting tackle. Next year is going to depend on what they do with the offensive line, how they improve it, and what Eli Holstein is able to do in his second year at Pitt as a redshirt sophomore. Can he stay healthy? Can he play at a high level and be more consistent than he was this past season? That's what next year is going to come down to, and neither one of those things will be affected by what happens in Detroit today. Neither one of those things will change based on what happens in Detroit today. Maybe whoever starts at right tackle, whether it's Isaiah Montgomery or Jackson Brown or Tarantino, whoever it is, maybe one of those guys has an amazing game and you come out of it saying wow, their offensive line should be, I think it'll be even better than I thought it was going to be. So maybe you get that. But on the whole, it's going to be very easy to hand wave away today's results when you've got that situation at quarterback, in addition to the injuries they've had on the offensive line. It's very easy to just hand wave it away. And then if they win, you can take that as well. It won't necessarily mean anything for next year, but you can say, you know what? Good for them, man. They broke the 5-game losing streak. They did it with a redshirt freshman walk-on at quarterback. Rallied up, against adversity, all that stuff. You want to get rah-rah and get behind it and feel good, a feel-good story. That would be a feel-good story. It wouldn't mean anything. It still wouldn't mean anything for next year, but it would be a feel-good story to end the season on. And I saw one post on the board creating this straw man that there's people out there saying this could be a springboard into next year. I don't see that. I don't feel like it is, unless you have a couple freshmen emerge or some young linemen emerge. Maybe Tyreek Robinson has a big game. Since Kanate Mumfield is not going to play in this game, Sincere Lee is hurt, Dejon Reynolds went into the transfer portal, you're going to need some other receivers to play with Poppy Williams and Kenny Johnson. Well, okay, maybe Tyreek Robinson has a big game, and you come out of this encouraged about what Tyreek Robinson can be for next season. Maybe a young safety has a big game, or maybe a young D lineman or something, or maybe an offensive lineman or something like that. Maybe you get a little encouraged from that. But on the whole, I don't see myself sitting here in however many hours it is that we start the post-game show, however many hours from now, it depends on when you're watching this. I don't see myself sitting here and saying that was what they needed for next year. Because again, what they need for next year is improved offensive line play and steady, consistent, healthy quarterback. And neither one of those things is going to be resolved or addressed today. Maybe Lynch has a great game or Duggar has a great game. And you come out of it saying, well, Holstein's still the man, but boy, their depth looks good for next year. If Eli has to miss time, if he gets hurt or something, well, their depth looks really solid. Looks like they're going to be in better position, that kind of thing. And I think that's what you could take away from this game. But like I said, due to the nature of this game, the personnel, basically everything surrounding it, is going to be very easy to say, oh well, win or lose. It has nothing to do with next year. And I can tell you right now, and these are famous last words, something inevitably will happen that will cause me to change my take here. But my opinion on next season, my prediction on the record, what I expect them to do, what I think they'll do, what they should be able to do, all those things will not be impacted one iota by what happens later this afternoon. Unless, I don't know, guys' legs start falling off or something ridiculous like that. You know what I mean? Like a catastrophic career-ending injury or something like that. Well, that could change my take. But short of that, this game is... it's truly a neutral game. You know, it'll go on the record. It'll be 7-6 or 8-5. And that's it. It won't really have an impact on next season. And I think if you're a Pitt fan, I don't think there are any Pitt fans still out there thinking to themselves, boy, what happened in that 5-game losing streak? We all know what happened in the 5-game losing streak. I mean, it started with injuries, started with the injury to Branson Taylor, continued with the injuries to Eli Holstein, and then there was some poor play. You know, I mean, they blew the Clemson game. They blew the Virginia game. They blew the Boston College game. And the injuries had something to do with that, but not all of it. Because those were games they could have won and should have won. And at the very least, the Virginia game and Boston College game should have been wins. 9-3, minimum. And then the Clemson game was there to be stolen. 10-2. How different is it if we're sitting here right now? I mean, obviously it's different. Bowl game's not even being played today. But we don't need to go down that path. Everyone knows what happened there. I think for Pitt fans, the primary focus now is 2025. How can 2025 be better than what 2024 was? How can 2025 deliver on the promise of the first 7 games of 2024? And today, this game won't tell us anything about that. Or will tell us very little about that. As it relates to the game and the matchups and what to watch, you know, Toledo mostly relies on the passing attack, and they rely on their quarterback, Tucker Gleason. He's a veteran quarterback. He's a productive quarterback. He threw, I think, 22 touchdowns and 7 picks this year. He was also his team's second leading rusher and led Toledo in rushing touchdowns with 6. And I think that's a not unimportant piece of this game. If it ends up being close, if it ends up being low scoring, if it's a slugfest and just not very pretty because Pitt's offense isn't moving and their defense is playing well, the play that breaks the game open could end up being a big run by Tucker Gleason. And so you have to watch out for that. I think he's got some decent weapons at receiver. I had to go through and kind of double check that none of them were in the transfer portal and make sure that Gleason himself was not in the transfer portal. They've got a couple solid pass rushers. It seems like they play like a 3-3-5 kind of scheme. You know, one of their top guys in pressures. I believe he pronounces his last name Ragin. I hope he does. It's Ragin, DeAndre Ragin. I hope it's not Ragin or something like that. I like the last name Ragin. And I couldn't find a quick glance through the internet, couldn't find any pronunciation guide. So I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name, but I love the fact that it could be Ragin. But he seems like he plays like an outside linebacker, pass rushing role. They got a defensive tackle, guy who lines up in the middle of the defensive line, who gets into the backfield and creates a lot of pressure. They don't blitz a lot, according to Pro Football Focus. The last 2 games of the season, both losses incidentally, they only blitz like 25% of the time. The game before that, I think it was a win over Miami of Ohio. I want to say Toledo maybe blitzed like 39-40% of the time, so they blitzed a little bit more there. We'll see how they decide to attack Pitt. If they are truly facing a first-time starter, redshirt freshman walk-on at quarterback, they may just stick to rushing 3 and dropping coverage or showing that odd man front and mixing it up with how they bring pressure to try and confuse David Lynch or Julian Duggar if that's who they end up facing. So that's something to keep an eye on. But really containing Tucker Gleason, not letting him get out and make plays with his legs, in addition to the traditional goals of stopping, the pass, where Toledo is, 41st in the country in passing yards per game. They average 246 passing yards per game. So pretty, I mean, they, primarily a passing offense. Still had about 400 rushing attempts. And like I say, Gleason is a big part of that. Second leading rusher and leader in rushing touchdowns. So you got to keep him contained, not just in the pass, but you can't let him break down and run either on draws or scrambles. That's going to be a big part of it as well. And Pitt's offense, if they don't have Holstein, we'll see if Desmond Reed plays. I'm not sure what to expect there. If he doesn't, it'll be another Juelz Goff game. We'll see how that goes. But like I said, the more guys who are out for Pitt, the easier it gets to hand wave away whatever happens this afternoon. Where it's either a positive, uplifting story of a team that faced down adversity and emerged victorious, or it was the team that was like massively shorthanded. So what did you expect to happen when they went into it with the personnel they had? You get to have it either way. It covers both outcomes. Or you could go the other way and be like, if they lose, it's just a further indictment on this coaching staff. They've lost 6 games in a row. The program is clearly spiraling, and it'll never rebound. It'll never pull out of its tailspin. It's about time to find out if Alan Green is serious about football. Or if they win, who cares? All they did was beat a 7-5 MAC team. You can choose which side you want to go on. That's the beauty of bowl games to some extent. You really just get to choose what narrative you want to have. And I think a lot of people, at least in the latter category of what I just mentioned, probably have already decided what their narrative is going to be. And we know that because they post it all the time on the message boards. Not all the time, but I mean, come on. If you want to get into that conversation and maybe refute it or join it, go to Panther-Lair.com. Panther-Lair.com. Pittsburgh.rivals.com is the place for all the Pitt sports news you can handle and message boards to interact with other Pitt fans. All day, every day, Panther-Lair.com. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com to get all the Pitt sports coverage you can possibly handle. Nope, this is the videos. Get all the Pitt videos you can possibly handle. Don't miss it all right here. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Remember, we'll be live right when this game ends today. Pitt Toledo will hit the final horn, and I will hit the go live button, and we will talk about it with your comments and questions right here at YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and you will not miss anything that we do here on YouTube. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you had a great holiday yesterday, and hope the rest of your week goes well. Enjoy the game this afternoon. We'll see you on the post-game show right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com.